Hi, I'm Mike Esneault, and welcome to the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge's AC23 Plus Artist Legacy Series podcast. This is a series where we talk to artists who are doing amazing things in the areas of the arts, including performance, education, production, as well as arts advocacy. We record this series in the Virginia and John Nolan Black Box Studio, as well as in the Jan and Bill Grimes recording studio here at the Carrie Siraj Community Arts Center. Be sure to visit artsbr.org for more information on all the great things we are doing here at the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge. Hope you enjoyed the podcast series, and thanks for tuning in.
Wow. Mr. Bob Sheppard.
Wow.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to welcome all of
Wow
our...
to you.
Well, no, thank you. That means a lot to me. I'd like to welcome all of our AC23 Plus Artists Legacy Series listeners and viewers to another session. And today is really special for me because I just have one of the greatest saxophone players on the planet sitting next to me.
Oh,
So-
man.
And
You're
I
very
mean
kind.
that.
You're very
And
kind.
anyone who's familiar with you, and there are so many, would agree. So it's a real pleasure and honor, man.
Oh, it's my privilege and honor. Very humbled to be here. Thank you, Mike, for the invitation. It's just walking into a studio and playing some changes. And it's quite cool when you think about it, right? That
Yeah.
We're able to just do that. We could go anywhere in the world and kind of do that, right?
Yeah, and just
Beautiful. Jazz is amazing.
Yeah, because we played together once before, many, many years ago, and it was kind of more of a sort of I guess, a collegiate setting, festival setting.
In Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, that's
Yeah.
right. And that was many years ago. So to your point,
I probably had hair.
I think you did. I think you did. Yeah, it was that long ago. But for us to be able to sit down and do that, and quite frankly, I'm just glad I was able to get through it without, you throwing down the sax and saying, I'm out of here.
It's kind of interesting, like just playing without we can't play the melody because it's
Right, right.
copyrights, and so we just play the tunes in our heads,
Yeah.
obviously, right?
Mhm.
So we're still playing the tune, just trying not to some of the same notes in there, but
Some of the same notes, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you are here in Baton Rouge because you're doing a concert this evening here at the Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge, and we had the pleasure of featuring you with a quartet with Dr. Bill Grimes on bass and Jonathan Grimes, our CEO, actually, here at the Arts Council on drums, playing, in most cases, I'm looking at the repertoire, a lot of arrangements of familiar tunes or contrafacts of familiar tunes. Is that right? Am I right saying that?
I really enjoy that. Well, especially because I'm not on the road with my own set band.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nice to write contrafacts. That means tunes, other melodies on
Sure. Yeah.
pre-existing changes that we all know. And I like that. I like playing standards. So, but as far as getting new musicians
Mm-hmm.
comfortable just to make some music without having to have their
Right.
eyes buried on the music.
Mhm.
I like that. I think the musicians appreciate that because they don't have to think as much, right? They know
a little
they already
less
knew
of a
the
stress
tune.
level, maybe.
Yeah, and I think it's a kind of a topic that we don't talk about a lot, right?
Mhm.
But when you're trying to perform and you haven't really played together,
Right.
and then you have this added weight of playing some very hard material that don't have time to rehearse.
Mhm.
It's obviously it takes a little bit of the heat off to at least for the blowing part of it. Right? The
Right.
melody might be. You have to look at that, but as far as the blowing, usually guys know
If you know those tunes.
those tunes, yeah.
Right.
So, and I enjoy that. Just like
There's certainly something to be said for just being able to lift your head out of the music, the sheet music, and just psychologically.
Don't you
kinda-
think?
Absolutely, absolutely. It opens your. Maybe I'm wrong, but like just lifting your head and not looking at music opens your ears potentially a little bit more.
Well, there are many times I get called to play in someone's band. I like to go play and they have some really hard music, right? And
Yeah.
okay, and the next tune's hard, and I got to really, it's a lot to learn, and
Mhm.
and sometimes the solo sections are equally as hard,
Mhm.
right? And then there's another one, and I think the audience gets a little burnt out because
Sure.
when they see the musicians kind of like, struggling to get through the tune, right?
Yeah, it communicates.
That indicates like, wow, you're being challenged and maybe not having as much fun as you would like to have.
Right.
And
Right.
if I think if the musicians are having fun,
Yeah.
the audience is going to have fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the experience of playing music should be joyful and expressive, and not worried about, just coming in the wrong place and all the stress that's what they're seeing. When you're doing that, they're watching that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, I'm not opposed to difficult music and challenging music and challenging the audience as well.
Right.
But anyway, it's an interesting thing because my tunes, I have some hard original tunes. I can't play them myself actually because there's never enough time to rehearse with the band, and
right.
I can't play my own tunes, the hard ones. So,
well, whenever I do these interviews, I'm curious about the early years. Like, how did you come to music? Like, did you grow up in a musical family, or?
Well, my father was a saxophone clarinetist. He wouldn't call himself a professional.
Yeah.
He's kind of a weekend warrior,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a musician, But
Yeah.
but he, grew up in New York, and he played in certain. He wanted to be a musician, but the World War II came, and then so there was music in the house when I grew up, for sure. And where I grew up around Philly, the suburbs of Philly, it was very rich band the school systems were great.
Yeah.
And we had band programs from elementary school. So and there was music everywhere, literally. From the corner bars to the Ramada Inn there was just it was a time where the only way to get music was to hire musicians, right?
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
If you wanted music, you'd have to get musicians, right?
Yeah.
So I was around, and my dad, of course, had all these. He liked Dixieland music, Phil Napoleon and the Land of Dixie. He had that on all the time, and big band music, and of course, so there was this rich culture of music just going on naturally, organically, And my dad brought home a clarinet when I was 9 or 10 years old.
So about 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to play drums. I used to sit around with pillows and drumsticks, play along with the hi-fi. And then he brought home a clarinet. Oh, really? And that's that.
So it wasn't one of these magical moments where you hold the clarinet.
Yeah,
It's
it
just-
wasn't like I was dying to play the clarinet.
Right.
But he got serious right away. He got me private study pretty soon. He wouldn't teach me himself. He didn't feel qualified. But anyway, that was the beginning in around Philly and in New York. My family is all from New York, so I heard a lot of music live. My dad was actually the Trenton, New Jersey local union rep.
Oh.
And that meant he just liked going out to places to hear bands and check people's union card. He really didn't care about that much, but it was an excuse for him
It was
to
an
go.
excuse to go hear all those great people. Yeah.
So sometimes he would just take me. And I was underage, but a lot of times I was with my dad, so it was cool. And
do you remember some of those musicians? Like,
not by name, but there were local players.
Yeah.
There was a great alto player, Earl Albright.
Okay.
It sounds kind of between Bud Shank and Paul Desmond sort of a sound, and I thought, wow, that's great, And but all through school, we had concert band and wind ensembles, and of course, big band jazz, and so that was the kind of my beginning. I sadly I would tell some of the kids, when I grew up, my parents, I was kind of an only child because my sister was 10 years older than me.
Okay.
And they were fighting all the time, right?
Oh,
My parents, they were just fighting all the time. And it was like, I would just retreat to my bedroom and practice.
So music was therapeutic.
It turned out to be very therapeutic. And, instead of going to a psychoanalyst, right, I had music to put my energy into. It's a kind of a true thing. It turns out to be very common for some music because to be a musician, to get good at something, like playing the clarinet or any instrument, you have to spend a lot of time alone.
Right.
And if you're a kid, right, most normal kids, they're out playing baseball and
Right.
getting in trouble,
Yeah.
And but I wasn't one of those kids. I sort of I was okay with being by myself with my instrument, with the music, right? So I think it was a big part of how I got chops and I felt comfortable at a young age on my instrument. And the other part of my household, my dysfunctional household, was the television set. We had a round dining table near the kitchen, and part of our family was a TV at the table,
Okay.
and it was on all the time. And back then, all the themes were jazz.
Right.
All
This is the Henry Mancini era, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All the
Quincy Jones,
sitcoms were jazz. All the Mannix, Lalo Schifrin, and they were all jazz composers, right? And because my parents were over here bickering, and it's like I turned that off, and I always had my clarinet or a flute or something, and I would just play along with the TV set.
Yeah.
That was my ear training, right?
Right.
And not thinking anything about it, except it was my way of channeling, my attention to something. Right? So I was watching the television and then playing along with the jingles, everything, right?
Oh,
So,
what a great training.
well, it turned out to be like great ear training, right? It's like just playing along with music.
Yeah.
For a jazz player, you have to copy it, you have
Yes,
to
it's-
echo it,
So is it fair to say that, in your early development, some people really don't start doing it until they're looking at a piece of music on a piece of paper. But for you, it's the oral tradition started first.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't afraid just to pick the horn up and try to figure out what I hear around me. Right?
Right.
That's the thing about jazz, which is its number one thing is to feel free on your instrument, finding the notes, finding the melodies, right?
Right.
And the faster you could do that, the better. And at the same time, I was in wind ensembles and learning how to play classical music. I was a fairly serious clarinet player. I was studying with a guy from the Philadelphia Orchestra, and I had some orchestral things going on here and there, and I really loved playing clarinet. But I don't know. Maybe it was at junior high school. I got my first saxophone. My dad had a saxophone, so I was always fiddling with that, hearing him, and that set me off on the jazz path.
So once you actually, started horn in hand, saxophone, did you kind of know at that point? Like
The
this is
saxophone,
my
actually,
instrument?
the playing of the saxophone was for me very natural. Almost an easy transition, because the clarinet is more difficult, and if you had chops on the clarinet,
Yeah.
going to the saxophone was fairly easy. The sound issues and all that is another story, but the actual getting air through the horn and playing the saxophone, it's for me it was an easier thing. So it just came natural just to start fiddling around on the saxophone and
Right.
playing these melodies that I'm hearing on the radio, et cetera. And then at an early age, I think it was in 10th grade, I did my first gig. My first gig was up in a tavern up in New Hope, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And my dad drove me, and he sat at the bar like about 10 feet away, and I was with my alto, with a quarter-vox player and a drummer, and I was just in this bar,
Wow.
and I didn't know tunes. They were in my head, but
Right.
the quarter-vox player would play, and then he'd play the melody, and then oh yeah, I think I know that tune, and
So
I'd
all
try to
by
do it.
ear.
All by ear, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was just awful, guaranteed. But, I remember that very well because I was like, oh, wow, I'm actually playing my horn out with professionals, right?
Right,
I don't know how it happened. My father probably knew the guys or something.
Yeah.
That's a good question, but
They were late on their dues, and so
yeah,
that was the
something
bargain.
like that. I swear I don't know how that happened, but and then there was bands in schools. Everybody had hey, let's get a band. We'll have a soul band. We'll have a funk band. We'll have a rock band. We'll have, and so pretty soon in high school I was out doing weekend gigs with these bands in different places, and of course weddings.
Sure. Yeah.
And bar mitzvahs. There was plenty of those. So from high school, I was starting to work, playing all kinds of styles.
That was going to be a question I had for you because, later in our conversation, I'd like to talk about some of your, professional experiences working with so many people. But that involves playing a lot of different styles of music. So as a 10th grader, was your mind there? Were you open, like digging lots of different kinds of music?
It was on the radio.
Yeah.
AM radio. You would you'd go from Boots Randolph from playing "Shadow of Your Smile" was a hit tune on AM radio, right? Instrumental, schmaltzy. I'm not going to play it because we'll get. But I learned. Oh man, look at that foofy subtone, man! It's amazing. And I went home and I tried to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was the Beatles and the Doors and whatever there was everything on the radio.
Right.
So that was just a normal thing, right? And of course, there was FM radio. Temple University had a great jazz station, and that was always on in the house. And when you're at school, everybody's kind of like, "Hey, man, I got this record. You got to hear." It's how I'm sure you have the same experience. We all did in some capacity. We had, influenced by our friends and their music,
Sure.
and so it's these kind of questions are interesting for me because you look at my resume, as you say, like if I look at my resume, which is interesting, like for actually to make that resume, like what I've done, and I wouldn't. I guess I could tell you maybe how some of those gigs happened.
Yeah.
But I didn't try to do any of those gigs. It was a natural, organic process of being able to be in the right place at the right time, and
of course having a reputation. I mean,
it started out as I could fill the role, of what was needed. I didn't mind doing that. Actually, I still enjoy, the craftsmanship of doing a good job on a gig. And it could be really corny music, or it could be not good music. But if I was hired to do that, I would go, okay, I think I know how to do that. Or I'd go listen to the music, and I'd do it. And so depending on who was hiring you last, that's what they think you do.
Right.
They don't know you're a jazz guy, right? And so for me, I was like, hey, okay, I could do that, and I could pay my rent doing that. And so for me, it was a natural to have a different hat and get hired to do that. At the same time, I had vision of being a jazz guy, like a real jazz guy. I was always working towards that, and always tried to, be part of that.
Was that the case? Like when you went to college, was that the prize was to become a jazz musician at that point?
It was always that, yeah.
Oh, even before then.
We were always all my friends at school. We were always talking about the guys. Man, if one of these days, man, if I get good enough, I could play in Thad Mell's band.
Yeah.
If I could get good enough, maybe, who knows, man, I could play with Horace Silver.
Yeah.
Who knows if I could play with Art Blakey? Who knows? We all had this kind of like desire to get to that place, and I certainly tried to emulate players that were my heroes, right? So that was always ongoing. At the same time, we were all out doing gigs. We were all just trying to play our horns. And it turns out, you'd complain about this gig or that gig, or, oh God, I don't want to do that kind of stuff. But ultimately, they were all jazz gigs to me, all of them, even the corniest ones, because you had to, just stand up and play your horn musically, and play with, it's all jazz to me. It's like you're just trying to make the notes, right? And there's an opportunity you could stick in some blowing, right?
Right.
Even though it maybe not even fit. No, I'm gonna play some of my hip Charlie Parker licks, and something and on a rock tune, right? So I used the opportunity of these gigs to actually practice. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what I did.
Right.
And so kind of interesting. So people say, well, how did you learn how to do that? It was just because I had this. There was an ecosystem when I was that age of that you could exist in a world of music, all kinds of music, and they needed musicians that can do these things. It was a basic supply and demand.
Right.
Right? There was more demand than supply.
Yeah.
And that's reversed over time, but
Yeah, the good old days.
yeah, the good old days. So when I moved to L.A., I went to college. I was gonna. It's funny. My dad wanted me to practice every. You practice today? Did you practice today? And sometimes I practiced. I lied. And I thought, oh, that felt bad. But he wanted me to practice and get really good. But when it came down to going to college, you're going to go to med school.
Well, I was curious if your dad wanted you to be a musician.
He wanted me to be able to support myself.
Right.
I mean, being a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist
Sure.
or something,
Yeah.
Of course, right?
The tried and true professions.
Because he knew what it was to actually be a musician. It was very unstable. And so I did that for a semester. Did that, meaning going to pre-med class courses. And I would come home and just play along with Cannonball and Train, and I didn't do my.
Someone tells me they weren't talking about that in class.
I probably almost flunked out.
Right.
And then I thought, listen, this is stupid. I had to get my grade average up. I went to a community college in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which was really good, by the way. Learned a lot. Great theory teacher there, and at the same time, I'm playing gigs on the weekends and whatever, and then I went to get my bachelor's degree in Bachelor of Education on clarinet at Glassboro State College, which is now Rowan, outside of Philly in South Jersey, and Manny Album, the famous arranger, was a guest. He was coming in almost every week to direct a band, and he took a liking to me, and it turned out to be pivotal because he said, you got to go to Eastman. And it's like, and I'm going, I'm working around Philly, and I had a girlfriend, and I don't really want to do that. No. You should go to Eastman because there's a new program there called Jazz and Contemporary Media.
Was that Ray Wright?
Ray Wright.
Yeah, genius teacher.
Yeah. So next thing I know, man, I'm going to Eastman, and that turned everything in another direction. Because I all of a sudden I was in a very intimidating atmosphere.
Conservatory.
Of a conservatory, and very intense. I went to the practice room. There was this annex where all the practice rooms were. The doors were about that thick, right? The old doors, and they had these handles on them, like just hermetically sealed, and with a little box like that window with wire mesh in it, right? And I'm going, and
Sounds like one of those old English prisons.
it was a prison, and I'd practice an hour, a couple hours, and I'd go out, take a break, get a glass of water, a cup of coffee, and I come back, and it's the violin player next door just been in there for 4 hours, 5 hours. And I'd go in and try to practice, blah, 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 and I'd go out and I'd come back and she's still in there. These people were practicing like 7, 8 hours a day, right? And I'm going, I'll never make it here. I can't do that. Right. But it was quite an intense 2 years, but there was great opportunities to play with high-level musicians.
Sure.
And
well, that school has such a reputation for alumni.
And that changed everything, because these people that I met at Eastman became, my colleagues that I work with to this day,
Right.
and people I work for, writers and so I ended up in L.A. I was always going to go to New York, but I ended up in L.A.
Yeah.
My friends at Eastman, they were all migrating to L.A. at that point, and one guy wanted me to play on his record, and I was in New Orleans.
That's right. You were at Loyola, teaching at Loyola for a little bit.
I got a job teaching there, like just out of the blue. They needed somebody, and I was referred to the dean. Next thing I know is in New Orleans. I was, I've never been. It's never anywhere, right? And
The birthplace of jazz.
and that was an amazing experience,
Right.
being in New Orleans. It really was. I learned a lot there, and I could have stayed. They wanted me to stay, but my whole dream was to move to New York and see what would happen.
Sure.
And I ended up going to L.A., but it was, I have a lot of fond memories of being down here.
Yeah.
Played some gigs up in Baton Rouge at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, before I start asking you about career post-college, you used the term "making notes" a minute ago. So let's make some notes. We were talking pre-recording about maybe doing a waltz. Want to try that?
We'll do the waltz.
We'll
the
do
waltz that we're
the
not going to
no-name
play.
waltz. Yeah, the anonymous waltz.
The undefined waltz.
You count me in.
All right.
Bravo, Bob.
Safe.
Wow, you sound so wonderful. I knew you would.
Likewise, Mike.
But it's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, so when we stopped talking, when we left off, we were talking about you moving to L.A. And I'm assuming that was the beginning of the career you've had, professional career, when you moved out there.
It was a very interesting move because I just wanted to play. I didn't, some people have a real vision of themselves as in a certain way, as an artist, as a touring artist, they really have a clear, and I really respect that because it's the hardest thing to do. But, I guess I grew up with this middle class kind of value system. And my dad, if you're going to be a musician, you better figure out how to make a living kind of attitude that was drilled into me. So, because I was able to fill a lot of roles as a musician, LA was a perfect place for me because everything was there. It was a lot going on when I moved there, and I immediately started meeting people. Billy Childs being one guy,
amazing pianist, yes,
who ended up being a very important person for me. That friendship and his music that he wrote, that Billy Childs was a guy that had a real vision of like who he wanted to be, what he's going to do, and I was like, I fit into his vision, right? So I met Billy Childs. I immediately started there in LA. There's big bands at the Union Hall every day. There's rehearsal bands, and that was a natural thing for a horn player to do, is to start subbing and I immediately started playing with some big bands, Toshiko Akiyoshi, Lutabakan big band, and ended up going to Europe and traveling with them. Because of Billy Childs, early on, he said, man, he was playing with Freddie Hubbard at the time, and he said, I think Freddie wants to change tenor players, and we're playing at this place called the Parisian Room, and why don't you come down, man? Maybe you'll sit in, And really, wow, Freddie Hubbard, geez, So I ended up going down there, and I sat in on a couple tunes, and never forget it. And I went home, and I didn't think about it. Next thing you know, like a couple weeks later, I get a call to do a gig with Freddie Hubbard. I was like, wow, really? I was never really hired officially, but that was the start of a long, not steady, but Freddie had like a West Coast band, East Coast band. He picked up guys when he needed them, but over the course of 7, 8 years, I played a lot with Freddie, and talk about learning experience. Right. Who would have thought? This white Jewish kid from Levittown, Pennsylvania, would be playing with Freddie Hubbard, and it happened. Right. It probably wouldn't have happened if I moved to New York, because there's there's just like a great tenor player on every block, but in L.A., I was probably one of the few tenor players that was an East Coast like a post-train influence kind of player. Right. That's what I like to do. Yeah. And all the disciples of train. That was what. So, because of that, I think I got there was a lot of great players, but at that time there was a kind of Grover Washington kind of thing going on in LA. A lot of that kind of Tom Scott, that kind of jazz, but
more crossover.
Crossover jazz, yeah. So I got a chance to play with Freddie, and at the same time, LA that's where the recording industry is. Right. And hey, man, when I started doing these big band rehearsals, guys were hearing me play, right? And hey, we need an alto player for this session, this horn date. Can you do it? Yeah, I can do it, right? And so that started to happen, where there was these sessions, and I could always read. I could read anything, right? Yeah. Also, I was a clarinet player. I could play the clarinet, good sound. I could play jazz on the clarinet. I could play classical on the clarinet, and I was studying flute all along since I was in college, right? Fairly good flute player, not great, but got better along the way. Right. So with all that being said, L.A. was perfect for a guy like me that could play styles, that could improvise, that could read.
Right. There's no reason not to hire you.
And they needed they needed musicians, right?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting to characterize all this stuff happened, but it was not through trying that hard to do. It was just being able to do it and having the demand. And when there was a chance to play, then it was like, oh, hey, this guy could play, right? So it's all about reputation, as you know, right?
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of that saying, when preparation meets opportunity.
Yes.
And you were prepared. Yeah.
I always was working on my horns, trying to get better, and hearing the level of musicianship when you do a session out there, it's like, whoa, it's very intimidating, and it made you like get better.
Right.
You really wanted to do that kind of work because that's what was happening there,
Yeah.
So I didn't realize until later on that I wasn't supposed to be doing all that, right? In terms of like, well, if you're going to be a jazz player, that's what you got to do. You can't do session work because that's a closed clique.
I was going to ask you about that. Like, yeah.
That's like those guys. They're the studio guys, and they do that, right? And if you're a jazz guy, you do that, or you're a touring guy, you do that. They want you to be pigeonholed. The musicians want to pigeonhole you, right?
Huh.
But I didn't know that, right?
The musicians want to pigeonhole you to protect their own turf, basically? Is that what
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. I didn't really understand that. I just like playing all music.
Right.
And so when I got an opportunity, like I met Walter Becker. I was playing with Randy Brecker at a club, Catalina's, and he heard me play with Randy Brecker. So next thing you know, he's, hey man, I want you to work with. He was producing Ricky Lee Jones.
Oh, one of my favorites. Yeah.
Right, and all of a sudden I was doing this record with Ricky Lee and doing Saturday Night Live, and then they started Steely Dan. So those are the kind of things that happen.
Right.
I met Walter Becker. Next thing you know, oh hey man, I could produce your record. Let's get you a record deal on with Windham Hill Jazz, right?
Yeah.
So turned out to be my first record, and he produced it. And then Steely Dan happened. I went and started going the road with Steely Dan. I wasn't supposed to be doing that because I was doing session work.
Right.
Right, but I didn't know. I'm what am I supposed to stay home and just do session work? No. I'm going to go out and play.
Well, I have a question about that though. So, obviously, when you're on the road, you're doing a tour like Steely Dan, you can't be home to do those sessions. Was there never a concern of
someone else is going to
even though
take
you
the
have
work.
the reputation, there is that out of sight, out of mind. Oh, Bob's on the road, so I'll call this guy, and then that guy starts doing the gig. Like, does that become part of the psyche, or?
It definitely, yeah, definitely. I when I started doing a lot of session work in L.A., then I started thinking in those terms, But I was a single guy, and I told myself, well, I'm not going to. That's what I intended to do, is go out and play music, and so I guess I didn't let it control my decision making to that point, right? And I was in the middle of Russia I was an invited guest, and it was a festival there. I was an invited guest with this big band in town in Russia, way far away, and my friend Dave Binney was there playing with Antonio Sanchez, and
Oh, wow.
and we went out to have a couple beers, and we're saying, hey man, how did you do that? How did you become, how are you out playing jazz, but you're doing all this stuff back in L.A. And I don't know, he asked me that question a long time ago, and I said, well, I don't know, and it turns out to be a kind of an unusual my career path that I had sort of the creative part of going on, and I also had the craftsman, the sideman thing going on,
Right.
and I swear, it was just happened that way, and it was great. I mean, but it is a very closed system, the studio, especially. Well, it always has been, very closed, and once you're in, you're one of the cats. You're one of the cats.
Well, so once you're in, I'm curious, would it be a situation where you would, like certain composers, certain film composers always wanted Bob, or is it kind of...
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes a composer just knows that they like to work
Right.
with you, and they could get what they could get. That happens. Sometimes it's a contractor.
Sure.
You get on the contractor's list, and you're on their call, right? If a movie comes in, it's like, a lot of times I would be on a movie, would be all legit, straight chair, woodwind section.
No
and,
improvisation, just reading.
yeah,
read the part.
but I would just be there to play some third clarinet parts, second clarinet parts when they needed it, some bass clarinet. But then there was a couple of cues with some obligato tenor on it, right?
Right.
And so I fit that role,
Right.
And that happened a lot, where they just needed a little bit of saxophone, but I was also able to cover the clarinets once in a while, the flute,
Yeah.
and it was terrifying sometimes to be in a big sound stage where the red light comes on and you got a 80, 90 piece orchestra, all the greatest players you've ever heard in your life. And I'm going, what am I doing here? I really felt like a fish out of water, but I could blend in, stay out of the way. I got confidence that I could be there, and got accepted, and interesting experience, stuff I never thought I'd end up doing.
So when you were at Eastman, because they were doing a media, music media type thing, did you have any training for like doing a film score session?
No training, just there was studio orchestra there that I got a chance to play with strings and sort of big band studio strings, and that kind of setting was happening at Eastman, so that was a great experience doing that. And but there's no training really ultimately for any of it. It's just the experience of doing it and learning from the experience of what you have to do for the next time.
Right.
Right. As my equipment my setup working for the situation is like, oh man, maybe I got to get another, like a darker mouthpiece for this, or blah blah blah. You learn a lot, and you learn how to act. It's like being a musician is you're learning from your environment. It's like a kid in their house, right? You're learning from your parents, like how to be a person, if you have good parents, right? But it's very much like that, And some people aren't cut out for it. But I enjoyed like the craftsmanship part of it. Like, okay, I did a good job. They're going to call me back, and then a week later you get a check in the mail. So, oh, this is cool.
I like the way this works.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I've never had that experience being a session player in LA, but went to a session when I was young, maybe early 20s, because of a certain situation, but I went to a scoring session for The Simpsons, so it was Alf Clausen. And I'm sitting there watching, it was Mike Lang, the keyboard player.
Yeah.
And he had like Mission Control there, his Steinway Grand, but then like modules. And this is back in, the module era of
everybody
synths.
had these big refrigerators full of racks of gear.
But it blew my mind in the sense that, I was watching him, of course I'm watching Alf, and, they run through a cue. And Alf's music a lot of times wasn't that, but they had some tricky stuff in it.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful writer. And, I just couldn't believe, like, the level of read it through, pretty much perfect, and then the next time, let's make it. And I'm watching Mike the whole time, like, running from here and doing this and doing this. Like, wow, that is a certain skill set that's really, really impressive.
That's it's that impressive. It really is. And
Yeah. And of course, time is money. So like,
that's right. And there's an intensity to that. Now the music is so difficult. There's a lot of young composers that are basically writing everything sequence. They're drag and drop composers. Like they're using loops and they're using this,
Sure.
and they're creating all this amazing stuff on their computer. And then we're going to record it with an orchestra, and like it's written the stuff that's kind of unplayable, right?
Yeah, it was
But they
never
play it.
breathed in.
Yeah, but the musicians play it.
Yeah.
They're that good,
Yeah.
They're really great, amazing musicians there, and learned a lot, from about how to play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of an autodidact. I was told, I'm self-taught.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I never had a lot of, not proud of it, but I never had a lot of formal training on the saxophone, or just sporadically, just going after it when I wanted to learn something. So,
Yeah.
so I just hear the music, hear how it's supposed to be, and if I go into a session and I hear these sounds and how people are playing it, that taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It really did. That's the lesson for me, And then I go, I'm gonna figure out how to sound like that,
Right.
Right. And yeah, it's very, very wild to be in a session like that. It's a couple of times I worked for John Williams. I was like, holy cow!
Royalty.
This was I was frightening, and it turned out everyone else was frightened too. So I don't, I'd rather play. I'd rather do this. This is way more fun, and
Right.
and where I live here,
Yeah. Well, and that leads me to a question about just your career as a band leader. And so you have how many albums? Is it 5, 6?
Oh, not
6,
too
7?
many. I probably have 4 or 5
Okay.
at this point. Not a lot.
Yeah.
And I want to catch up because
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
Do you enjoy that role of leading your own band?
I do. I actually know how to do it very well now because I've worked for so many leaders.
Yeah.
And yeah, I enjoy it a lot. Unfortunately, there's to go out and play with a band is very difficult. It's more difficult than ever because there are fewer venues and to take musicians on the road, very expensive.
Sure.
But I have my own band in L.A. and I play around a little bit.
Yeah.
I enjoy that a lot, and the older I get, the harder it is. And the thing that really keeps me going is I have a studio that years ago I converted into from a garage studio into a really nice playing room, and I have guys come over a couple times a week and we play, and that really is my governor, of like.
Right.
That's very important to me. So
Yeah.
it keeps me, grounded. It's like, I could still do this,
The jazz habit.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. It's like, at this point, I really want to play more than ever, creative music. And, but it seems to be less opportunity just because of the nature of, the clubs and touring and everything. But anyway, I'm going to Italy in October with Peter Erskine. And
You have a long relationship with Peter, right? A professional relationship you recorded.
Yes, I met Peter early on in L.A. and we played a lot together. And I've been the beneficiary of a lot of his creations and bands and opportunities. I'm very grateful to him because of high-level playing opportunities,
Right.
And so John Beasley, another one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We go way back. We've played, these relationships are are long-standing, really cool. And you have these, I know you have the same kind of things. You play with guys a long time, and they become part
They're
of
family.
your
Yeah.
family, musical family,
Right. And those, that's kind of interesting. I was talking to someone the other day about, the world of being a musician, an artist, but in this case, musician, and the kind of relationships you form with musicians, fellow musicians. It's different. Like, wouldn't you agree? Like, when you have relationships with people who are outside of music, and there's going to be very close relationships, but there's a certain musical bond that exists, almost immediate in many cases, because of the music.
Yeah,
There's
you have
an
this
empathy, and
yeah.
you place with someone, and it works. Well, instantly you have an understanding that without the arts, it's a little different. In that potentially.
It's very special. We're very lucky. You're right. The connection, the musical connections. You gravitate to certain you notice that, right? We find these guys that fit. They're compatible with how you think musically, and I always wondered when I was young. I was like, why are these guys playing? How come that guy doesn't play with you? You remember the Playboy Readers Poll jazz band, right?
Yeah.
This fictitious band,
Yeah.
right? And whoever was at the top of the heap, they made a big band. Like you would have Miles Davis next to Herb Alpert, next to Maynard Ferguson, next to Chet Baker, or something like that.
Talk about polar opposite sort of.
It doesn't.
concepts.
Yeah, that would never work.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, you mentioned Italy, and I was going to ask you, things coming up that you're excited about. Of course, that. But any other projects going on, or?
Well, I have a couple of really nice gigs around L.A. There's a very cool small club called Sam First. I play there quite often, and then there's another. Speaking of Herb Alpert, he has a beautiful club called Vibrato, and I play up there quite often. And there's a couple of nice gigs coming up there, and in the meantime, 8 years ago, I got married to a beautiful Argentine lady who's a great vocalist. If anybody thought I would ever marry a vocalist, they would have won a lot of money, I should say. But I produced her record, and it's just a gorgeous record, and we're trying to promote that. And but that was with a string orchestra, with a studio orchestra.
Oh,
Nan
nice.
Schwartz, a great Grammy Award arranger.
Yeah.
She did these beautiful tracks for her record. So that's something I'm doing, and teaching, still teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy teaching, and being involved in product development, actually, which is something that I'm really have a passion for, because I like to tinker. I like to figure out how things work. So I have a actual mouthpiece company
Okay.
that we produce really great saxophone mouthpieces.
Okay.
And
What is it called?
Retro Revival. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Retro Revival saxophone mouthpieces.
Okay.
Yeah. They're very good. Yeah.
Well, let's do some plugs. So if people want to find out about that, how do they do that?
The website, Retro Revival, saxophonemouthpieces.com, or just Retro Revival, sax, something like that. It'll come up.
And as far as your schedule, tour schedule, etc., is it bobsheppard.com?
BobSheppard.net.
.net.
SHEPPARD.net.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not an active social media guy. I just don't do enough of it. I should, but yeah. So people can contact me very easily if they want study.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm really good at, and I really enjoy it, is diagnosing players that are wanting to improve their playing in some way. Right. It's like I have guys that come in that are professionals, from, 20 years old to all the way to up in their 60s.
Mhm.
And it's really, I'll really enjoy that because it takes a lot of humility to come in and study when you've already been playing for a long time,
Sure.
right?
Right.
And I really appreciate that because we're all trying to learn and
Yeah.
and so I'm the kind of person that likes to figure out like how someone thinks and learns, and then try to figure out the way I learn something. Because as I say, I didn't have a lot of formal study, but I had to figure things out in a way by hearing what I'm doing as compared to what I want to do,
Mhm.
and have to go through, well, in terms of jazz playing or in terms of sound and because the saxophone is a very wild instrument. The variables are many variables. So it just turns out that I enjoy figuring the how things work,
Right.
the physics. If I didn't like to play so much, I'd probably be involved in, product development and new things, And so I enjoy that a lot. So that's sort of, in my recent, 5-10 years, I got into that with certain people that grew into. I actually have our company actually has a saxophone that we developed, and it sounds great. It's a great horn. And,
Yeah.
So I never thought about that would happen, but relationships
Sure.
along the way, and you meet people, say yeah, and then you start talking, and next thing you know, you're going over here, So that's my life, though. It's like really these paths that happen along the way are unexpected, and they take you different places, So that's kind of sums up my my musical career paths. It's a lot of stuff,
Well, in your case, certainly it's been thus far been a heck of a ride. I'm sure
man,
a much longer
very-
ride to come, but still, it's very impressive.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, again, it's like I'm very grateful to be able to still play music,
Mhm.
play my horn. I can't wait to get to my horn every day.
Yeah.
That's important,
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys my age, at this point, they're saying, I did, it's like, whatever. They can't wait to get to the golf course, and that's great.
Yeah.
I actually want to learn how to play golf, by the way. But I'm still playing and still doing it. So
Yeah.
it's really, I'm going to keep trying to hang in there with it,
Well, Bob, again, thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
So nice to be here, man. And we had some nice fried shrimp po'
Fried
boy.
shrimp po'
So-
boy, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Eating some South Louisiana
Oh, man.
Cajun aye food.
Yeah, oh, man, I was looking forward to that. So thank you for the kind invitation.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the concert tonight.
Yeah, we got to
And,
figure out what we're going to play, right?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But let's send the listeners out on a tune. You brought something in that's based on a standard, and it's called "Did It Have to Be You?" Let's try it.
All right.
The Arts Council of Greater Baton Rouge would like to acknowledge our generous sponsors, the Shell Corporation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development, and the City of Baton Rouge.